About to get started. Thank you all. Welcome to our second annual Amplify Your Voice conference. If I didn't get to meet you this morning, my name is Alan Detloff. I'm the Dean of the Graduate College of Social Work here at the University of Houston, and I'm very honored to be hosting this event and very grateful to all of you for being here. And now I'm very honored to introduce our keynote speaker today, Senator and soon-to-be Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. Senator Garcia is a native of the South Texas farming community, Palito Blanco. The eighth of 10 children, Sylvia learned at an early age the value of education and hard work. Growing up, she saw her parents struggle to raise those 10 children, and because of their struggles, her parents wanted to make sure each of their children had a good education in order to better their lives. As a result, Sylvia worked hard and attended Texas Women's University on a scholarship, graduating with a degree in social work. But she didn't stop there. She then received her Doctor of Jurisprudence degree from Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University. Aside from acquiring her education, Sylvia knew it was also her responsibility to give back to the community. So as a social worker in her early professional career, Sylvia protected our community's most vulnerable. Whether it was our children or our elderly, she made sure no one was forgotten. Shortly afterwards, Sylvia entered public service with the City of Houston. She served as director and presiding judge of the Houston municipal system for an unprecedented 5 terms under 2 mayors. In 2002, Sylvia was elected to Harris County Commissioner's Court. The first Hispanic and first woman to be elected to the office, she continued her advocacy for working families and made certain Harris County took care of its most vulnerable, all while making certain Harris County led the way for new jobs and economic development. Sylvia Garcia has dedicated her life to the community and to public service. Just like her parents believed in her future, she believes in the future of Texas families that depend on quality education for our children. Around the Graduate College of Social Work, we just referred to Senator Garcia as a rock star. Please help me welcome fellow social worker, Senator, soon-to-be Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia.
You know, I only had to pay him a couple of dollars to use the rock star line. It worked well too, didn't it? So first of all, thank you, Dean, for such a great introduction. I can truly say that, you know, I've been through this campus many times and have known every dean here since I've been in Houston. And I can tell you, you've got a rock star in Dean Detloff. I mean, he is just a great guy. And he's been a huge asset to this university and to the Houston community because he's made sure that students here are engaged not only in the campus, but in the community. And that's what I love the best, Steve. So thank you so much for all you do. And, you know, and it's really great to see some former employees here. You know, when people work for you, you're just not sure what they think of you. You know, do they think you're mean? Do you think that you're a rock star? Do they don't have an opinion? But it's good to see Catherine here and Mike, and I guess that means I did okay. All right, good. But it's always good to be here on the campus, and of course I remember to wear my red, go Cougars, or should I even say also red for Rockets, go Rockets. I think we're doing well, and I know some of us were disappointed this week with them and the Astros, but y'all, it was just one game. We keep going, right? So for those of you who don't know my background, as the dean said, my first degree was in social work. So for many of you, I was in your shoes many years ago when I was going to the School of Social Work at Texas Women's University. My degree and my experience working as a social worker for a number of years, quite frankly, was maybe one of the most significant experiences of my life because it helped shape my worldview and approach to governing like few other experiences. Whether it was as a municipal court judge, Houston City Controller, Harris County Commissioner, or now as a state senator, I always saw the dignity, worth, and potential in everyone, regardless of their gender, their circumstances, their beliefs, their ethnicity, or who they loved. As a caseworker before going to law school, I saw on the ground level the impact that the safety net programs that were established by many before us, what impact they had in a positive way on so many people's lives. When you see someone's life change because of one of these programs, you truly understand that we, through our government, have not only the ability, but more importantly, the moral obligation to improve the dignity, welfare, and rights of all our neighbors. And when I say all our neighbors, I mean all our neighbors. That's why I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that you're here, because it shows that you're interested in politics. We need your voice at the table. I know you've had a lot of discussions this morning. The key is you've got to be at the table, especially now more than ever. Social workers have always been at the forefront of every major social movement in this country. They helped craft the New Deal and the war on poverty, and were architects of the civil rights movement. And now it's your turn to rise up and make sure that you meet the challenges ahead. You have the right mix of getting a good education, you're getting experience, and you understand the consequences of a lot of what is going on today in America. So the challenges are there, but I know that you can be here to make the changes facing us today. You can help those of us in government and public service and the private sector to craft policies that directly go to the issues that matter to people. We can make sure that we work out a way to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace and make sure that our daughters and granddaughters never have to say, "Me too." You can help to increase racial sensitivity among police officers and help Americans everywhere understand that Black lives matter. You can march for our lives and help highlight the consequences of lax gun laws and help us to treat the human conditions, the hate, the shame, and the isolation that drives people to commit atrocities like mass shootings, because quite frankly, enough is enough. And you can help us approach education holistically to look at not only the child, but the whole family, the whole home. Not just to be teaching kids to pass tests, but ensuring that our kids are healthy, happy, and primed to become good students and outstanding individuals. You can do all those things. Now, I've talked a lot about public policy and your role in crafting and implementing it. But if policy matters, so does politics and the politicians. You cannot ignore it. They're intertwined. Elections matter. Let me repeat that again. Elections do matter. Electing the people who really understand the importance of promoting human dignity above all, matters more now than it ever has. And it all starts with you through voter registration and voting. If every single one of you became a deputy registrar, if every single one of you made sure you voted, if every single one of you made sure everyone around you voted, think of what a difference that would make. And we could have politicians that care more about people than special interests or campaign contributions. But public apathy and low voter turnout allows people to manipulate the system to their benefit. And that's why many of the laws that we have here in Texas seem, quite frankly, to be designed not to make it easier for people to vote, but in fact to make it harder. And the group that gets impacted the most in a negative way is poor people. They're designed to get poor people from having a voice. And that simply is something that is unacceptable. they're the ones that need the good government the most, but they are the ones that have the least. Let's start at the beginning. How many of you here are registered to vote? Nice crowd. This is good. That's a good start. Now, how did you do it? That's actually not very easy sometimes these days, is it? Some of you probably registered, months ago, years ago. But you can't do it online today in Texas, can you? Why? They don't want to make it easy. They want to make it harder. So you can't register online. You have to find a deputy registrar or go to the tax assessor's office or one of the satellite offices. How many of you are deputy voter registrars? Well, Dean, what are you teaching these kids? You've got a bunch of activists here, which is good. I love it already. But you're the exception to a whole bunch of rules because it's not easy to register. It's not easy to become a deputy voter registrar. You probably won't find someone to register in your own community, to register you if you're not registered, because the state has passed some laws to keep people from actually becoming voter registrars. That includes forcing people to take trainings every 2 years at the county in order to register voters. And then you get into the whole debate, and I don't want to get into the weeds because I've only got so much time. It's about where in their schedule, and how can you get to that schedule of trainings. So it's not easy, especially for who? Poor people, or disadvantaged, or disenfranchised people. Now, there's also a law that's intended to kind of spook you about whether you even want to do it. Did you all know that if you don't turn in the voter registration card within 3 days, you can actually be jailed? And that's for just turning in the card. I can't even think of anything else where a law is that harsh about turning in anything. Think about it. There's also one that says that you can only register people in the county where you're the deputy registrar. So you get your uncle or you get a family outing and you find out that 2 or 3 of your relatives are registered. They're from Brazoria County, they're from Galveston County. You cannot register them because you're registered in Harris County to vote, to do that in Harris County. And guess what happens if you do it? You figured it out, right? You can go to jail. And you're just trying to help, right, and make it easier. Now, most smart people would just as soon not engage in any activity that they might go to jail to, so it ends up having creates a system where people are scared to do it. The most common reason that a lot of high school principals have told me that even though the law says that they're supposed to register and make available registration 18-year-olds in high schools, and that's a law, y'all. In Texas, and few school districts do it. And when I talk to principals, the one rule that they talk about, the reason they don't do it is the 3-day rule. They're just afraid that if somebody forgets to turn in the voter registration card, then one of their teachers or the principal, him or herself, will end up in trouble. That's what it was meant to do, to scare them from doing it. So consequently, a lot of our high schools, and I'm glad our trustee is here, Elizabeth Santos, because I don't think HISD promotes registration of high school students, and they should, as all the 24 school districts in the county. Now, they also let you register at DPS when you go get your driver's license. On the face, it makes it sound like that's making it easy, right? But most of you have a driver's license that you need to renew, and most of you may have a car. Now, how many poor people do you know that do own cars? How many poor people do you know that have a neighborhood DPS station? Frankly, sometimes when I have to go get mine renewed, I got to Google it and figure out where it is and then figure out where it's open, and I can tell you there's not anyone near anywhere in my house. So imagine the obstacles it is for the people that we try to help. So again, it's not made easy. So some of those same obstacles we see in voter ID. If you don't have a driver's license, then you don't have readily available ID. So we get involved in a lot of litigation, and we still are going through some of that on what other proof you show. Now, once you're registered, well then great. So then you're ready to go vote, right? How many of y'all voted this last time? How many of y'all voted for me? Yay, there's a few here. Sorry y'all, I had to get a little political. But those of us who vote know that if you're voting for a school board, like if you're gonna go vote for Elizabeth Santos, you may go vote at a place that's different, even though it's right by your neighborhood, than when it's time for you to go vote for me for Congress. And then you're gonna vote for a bond election for the city because the firefighters won parity, and that's still a different place. There's no uniformity, it changes. I've been to a voting location myself, and I'm an above average voter, right, that keeps up with everything, and I show up, and it says, moved. Then I gotta figure out where. And this last time it happened to me, y'all, they changed hours, they combined precincts, I got there, and then I went and tried to get in line, and this was my election day in primary, and the freaking machines weren't working. They didn't work for almost an hour. I thought it was a plot by one of my opponents. I thought it was the Russians. I made phone calls. In fact, there was a picture of me in the Chronicle making phone calls like, what the heck is happening? So those things don't make it easy, do they? You know, poor people and the people that we try to help don't have the resources. If they go to one poll and it's closed, they may just go home. They may give up. Another time, these are all true stories. I showed up in my own voting booth, and I was told that I couldn't vote because I was not on the list. Imagine, I'm a state senator. To be qualified to run for office, you have to be a registered voter. They knew who I was, but they would not let me vote because I wasn't on the list. This happened in the runoff for Sylvester Turner. I called the mayor's team and said, hey, can you believe this? I said, and I'm calling not because of me, because I'm going to get on the phone, and I sure as hell am going to vote today. But think of all the people that were told that got discouraged and went home. Well, it turns out for me that for some reason they had put the, on the list, the downtown had me on the list, but the people at the polls didn't have me on the list, so I accused them of keeping cookbooks, you know, one for the auditors and one for internal. And they got, you know, we had words over the phone. Turns out that they had put SILVIA on the paperwork here, but downtown had SYLVIA. So it was a difference in spelling, and I told them, well, I don't know who decided to spell my name differently. I mean, here's my voter registration card. But imagine, I went through that. Imagine what other people go to, and imagine the frustration they give up. So anyway, there's roadblocks, but I don't want you all to get discouraged. I just want you to understand that it's just not easy to tell people register to vote and then go vote. That when you have clients and you're working with poor people, there's so many obstacles that it's hard. And some of them, unfortunately, are by design. In fact, Texas has led the nation in the number of documented violations of the Voting Rights Act, with 109 violations since 1982. We're number one. And that is nothing to brag about. Frankly, shame on us. I know I testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee a couple of years ago about this issue. It's pathetic. We have one of the lowest voter turnout rates in the country. I think we're like number 48 out of the 50. And we also have the highest number of violations of any state on voting rights. It's not a good record. So often the attempts to make these changes end up being blocked by the courts, but we can't always sit around and wait for a federal judge to help us. The way to get meaningful election reform is our action together. That's why I'm so pleased that so many of you are registered to vote, and I'm so pleased that so many of you are voting. Because the only way we're going to see the reforms, the only way we're going to see changes is if all of us, minorities, women, LGBTQ community, all of us together, women, all of us who are disenfranchised and don't have a seat at the table, work together. Because our interests are aligned for a very simple reason. Our voices are stronger if we work together. The issues that hurt you hurt all of us. So I know by this point you're asking, well, what can we do about it? Well, you're social workers. It's in our DNA. We're going to do something about it because we're natural organizers. So number one, you've got to register to vote. So many of you already have, but if you haven't, please do. Number two, vote at every election. I don't care if it's the parity fight that the firefighters have, or whether it's my race or Anna's race, or your race if you decide to run for office. Number three, get involved in a campaign. There's no better way to really make change but to work directly in a campaign and impact the policy statements that elected official or that candidate has taken. That's the best way to influence policy early on. We're social workers. We're natural organizers. We know people and we know what moves them. No one is better suited to organize than us. We chose social work as a career because of firmly held core beliefs, and we should fight for those beliefs, not only in the community, in the social service agencies, and not only while we're working with families, but at the ballot box as well. Because we are at a very important time in our history. Quite frankly, we have a White House that's more interested in tweeting than leading. We've got to do something to make change. Just a year and a half ago, our first African-American president was just about completing his second term, and it looked like we might be electing a woman, didn't it? We had increased access to health care. The Affordable Care Act was covering so many people. We were slowly ending all our armed conflicts around the world. We were doing things for people. That's what President Obama was doing. But things have taken a dramatically different change since then, haven't they? Hate and prejudice seems to be on the rise in America. Old wounds are reopening. Inequality is on the rise. But despite all these challenges, and I don't want to end on a low note here, I am encouraged. I am encouraged and I'm optimistic because I see so many people across the country. Where, I was at the Women's March in Washington, millions of people. I've attended Black Lives Matter marches here. I was with the students recently in front of City Hall. It is just great that especially young people are seeing the challenges, are saying, we ain't gonna have it this way. And they're challenging, right? That's what we need to do. So whether it's Black Lives Matter, Me Too, or March for Our Lives, this next generation understands that unfortunately, these days, justice has to be earned. It's not going to necessarily be guaranteed. We have to fight every step of the way. So I hope all of you in this room help to harness that energy among people in America right now and use it to create lasting and meaningful change. I know you're up to the task because people like us as social workers are driven by a higher purpose. We're driven by the desire for a meaningful life for everyone and a passion for helping others. And whatever it is that drives you to social work, make sure that you hold true to those beliefs. Do not waver and do not let anyone discourage you. For me, it was my background. As was said, I grew up poor in South Texas. I'm one of 10 children. So I fight every day to make sure that other children don't have to rely on food stamps, Medicaid, and public assistance. I want to make sure they get a good education, because that is the equalizer in America. I want to make sure that they have a shot at the American dream. But it's also my faith that drives me. I am reminded of Isaiah 10, which says, "Woe unto you who legislate evil and rob the poor, making widows and orphans your prey." Jeremiah received a word from the Lord in chapter 22, saying, "Go down to the palace of the king and declare, do what is just and right. Rescue from the hand of the oppressor the one who is robbed. Do no wrong or violence to the foreigner, the fatherless, or the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place." My faith, my actions, and my approach to governing is about treating every individual with dignity and respect, and making sure that when we say "injustice for all" in the Pledge of Allegiance, we mean justice for all. Nobody gets left out. It's for all. And we continue to give a helping hand to those who need it the most. So whatever drove you to this profession, to social work, never forget your core beliefs and never let anyone stop you. Dig deep and push on. We need your talents, we need your passion, and we need it now more than ever. And whatever you do not give up. Thank you and God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm told I didn't use up all my time and I can do questions, if anybody has any.
Raise your hand and we'll try to get to you, of course, so that we have plenty of time to get to questions from everybody. But we'll be respectful of this time.
Yeah, I just said y'all were rebel rousers, activists, and organizers, ready to speak up and fight. Yes, ma'am. It's 3. Yes, ma'am. No, I believe it's 3. We'll double check. Thank you. She was asking me about the time period. Yes, ma'am. You mean besides your charm and personality? Well, I mean, Elizabeth, thank you for that question. If y'all don't know, Elizabeth is a member of the School of Board of Trustees for HISD. And you've been at it since, what, January? And I did help her get elected. It's important, you all, for me, to always reach back and help young people get into office and to get involved. I can't keep doing it forever. I know I look pretty good. But I will retire at some point in my life. I mean, I will slow down. It's not today. I mean, I'm going to Congress right to go fight. But I have to be mindful that I've got to make sure that there's someone behind me to continue the work. So if I find candidates that are young, that have potential, that align with my values and my core beliefs, I'm going to support them and I'm going to help them. And I've always been about doing that. Because we've got to make sure that we always have a good bench so that when some move, there's someone else to fill in the spot. Because the worst thing we can do is to be so engaged in just me, that then something happens to you and you look back and some pretty Republican wins instead of us. You know, you can't do that. So you've always got to do that. And what drives me is you know, my passion, especially for children. I'll always be about the kids. And I know what struggles I had growing up as a child in rural South Texas. I mean, I've had to pick cotton, I've had to bale hay, I've had to really work hard all my life. There's no need for that anymore. There's a lot of resources, there's a lot of things that are there to help all our children receive their full potential and have a shot at that American dream we always talk about. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, grassroots nonprofit organization starting off, and the thing is, you mentioned how we have to keep going, and you know, how do you, when you're discouraged, and how do you keep going, and at the same time, how do you establish a relationship with officials, city officials, or elected officials, where you can voice your opinion and be heard, and some action is taken in a respectful way? How do you get that done?
Yeah. Well, it's actually two different questions, I think, and I think I'll take the first one. Actually, the second one first is what I meant to say. I think the easiest thing to influence policy is really, as I said earlier, is get with the candidate at the beginning, because you are able to work directly with them and establish that relationship, and they'll remember that. And you can also help influence the positions that they take on issues. So if your charitable group is involved with, you know, pre-K, for instance, and you start volunteering and working with Elizabeth in her campaign, you know, and she's going to be there thinking, well, what should I do about pre-K? But she finds out that you are an expert at that. I mean, you do that every day. So she may just ask you, what do you think? So you'll start influencing that policy right away. Now, if she doesn't ask you, you could tell her, hey, I heard you're going to talk about pre-K at your next event. Here's something that's going on in my neighborhood. Or you can also sign up to their meetings and get time to go and talk about the issue that matters to you. And then you can visit with her afterwards. And I'll tell you what, most of us in public service know who we work for, and that's the constituents. So if you simply call and let her know that you would like to come and visit with her, she'll meet with you, or I'll meet with you before, after a meeting, or at the office, or if I'm not there, with one of my assistants. So it's really not that hard. You just have to, knock on the door, or make the phone call, or send that email. And don't get discouraged. It's not easy. There's always speed bumps on the road. But keep to your core values and your core beliefs, and remember, it's about the ultimate goal. It's about the fight. Every day is a different day. You may be discouraged today, but tomorrow morning, and then your door is going to open. And if in your heart you know what you're doing is right, go after it. Don't give up.
Senator Garcia, I just want to thank you for not voting on that tax bill that the Texas Senate passed that didn't do anything to help education reform. Thank you for that.
Well, we need to stop focusing on the tests and focus on each child. And as I said earlier, holistically, if the child is not learning, you really need to get to look at the whole child, the family, the household. What else is going on to make sure that something is influencing or impacting, their little minds. I often thought, I first wanted to be in medical social work, but then my field placement for maybe a week I did, they sent me to Parkland Hospital in Dallas. I very quickly changed my mind. Then I thought I would do school social work. And they actually sent me to a Wesley community center, and I worked with young girls. And it was mostly group work. And then I thought, no, not. So my favorite has been geriatric social work. I love my seniors. So I think for every school, in my mind, should always have a counselor, a nurse, and a librarian. And, if possible, a school social worker to really work at the issues that the kids are wrestling with, to make sure that we address them, to make it easier for them and help in any way that we can. Did you hear that, Trustee? Oh, good.
I'm Brittany. My question is, I wanted to touch on your point about pre-K education. I've been hearing a lot that pre-K is one of, or allowing or access to pre-K actually improves the child's chances of completing basic education, so high school education. So I just wanted to know if you or any of your peers in the state legislature are planning on introducing any bills to promote equity and access to pre-K education.
Well, many of us do. In fact, I support pre-K for all. I mean, in all our schools. And you're absolutely right. It is critical, and it's critical that we get it everywhere and start early, because that's where the developmental and all the learning really takes place. I mean, if you get good pre-K up front, you'll have much success further down the road. Regrettably, and let me just say this as an aside, that was probably one of the main reasons that I voted against the state budget the last time, because it did not fund pre-K, and it doesn't even contemplate pre-K for everyone. And the reason is, of course, cost. That we've shifted now to expect the local HISDs to provide whatever pre-K they can. And, you know, I know for HISD it was what, 100 and something million that you all needed and didn't get, not even half. And we only funded a very small portion. And recently it was pulled back. So basically the state is not funding pre-K. You were putting the burden on the local HISDs. I know HISD does operate, all the ISD does, but not all of them do. And they can't do it at every school. And that's what's missing. It's a pure question of money. I think the debate and the data and to support the need is there. It's just no will from the folks that put the budgets together and the votes in the Senate. I voted against the Senate budget because it did not do enough for education. I can't hear you, sweetie.
Would this be an issue or a topic of appropriations?
Yes, it would be appropriations in the House, and the House version of the budget did have some pre-K dollars, but the Senate version, which is Senate Finance Committee, it's two different groups, did not. And even when we had the conference committee, it was trimmed down, but even that didn't happen. It wasn't even what the governor wanted, and the governor had made it a priority of his and an emergency item, but the senators just basically said no. Sure, it's very there's bigger priorities like bathroom bills and other things that were nonsensical that took people's time rather than focusing on pre-K. Anybody else? Well, one more.
What are you planning on focusing on this next legislative session? Because there's so many urgent things that are going on, health, education, security, on and on. Is there anything that you're going to focus on, laser focus on?
Her question was, what would be my priorities this next legislative session? Well, for me, to prepare for this next session, I've been still attending all the interim hearings, and I will focus, quite frankly, because I do expect to win for Congress. I have been focused on the issues that matter most to my district, and you've named them all: healthcare, education, immigration reform, and good jobs. That's what matters in my district, so that's what I focus on. And I know that I had some bills on some of those issues that I now am trying to already start looking at which senators can carry on with some of the bills that I had that either passed that just need tweaking this next session, or new bills that either didn't get heard in committee, like my pre-K bill didn't even get a hearing. My revenge pornography bill law that passed was recently called unconstitutional by a court, which means that someone needs to go back and tweak it to fix the issues that the court raised. There's things like that what I'm doing is already talking to colleagues about picking up where I left off to make sure that the work is complete. Now in Congress, quite frankly, it's the same priorities because for some of these issues, for example, HISD, about 50% of their budget is federal dollars. And it may not be, doesn't sound like a lot, 15 out of 100%, but if they were to be reduced by those dollars, they gotta make up all that work. And those are the programs that matter the most to the kids. It's the lunch programs, it's pre-K, it's bilingual ed. What else am I forgetting? It's, those are 3 examples of where the federal dollars go. And we know that I just call her Betsy, I always forget her last name, the Secretary of Education, DeVos, is into cutting, right? So if she were to cut that, and with the issues they have on recapture, it would make the deficit at HISD even worse. And who does that hurt? Us and our pocketbooks, because we're the taxpayers. So I will focus on those same issues in Congress, but from the federal level, because the dollars start there and trickle down. And the only additional thing that I would be doing would be all the Harvey related dollars that need to come down, because we still don't have enough, and we still have a lot of work to do.
Well, Senator, I wanted to give you a small token of appreciation on behalf of the college, and as a former staffer and an alumni of the program, I appreciate you. You're my mentor, and I honor you all that I can everywhere I go, and I think we've all benefited from hearing your wise words today, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.